be an expert on many of them. So I'm giving these talks and things everywhere. And so I was like, what will we talk about that is different? And amongst the topics he gave me, the one that was really, really, close to my heart. And it was something that he really sparked because I said, I really haven't gone deep into thinking about the creator mindset, though I really now believe that everything that I have done has come out of a creator mindset. So first, just to some of you who obviously, I mean, you're part of something which we've got the University of Maryland here, and they're talking about business. So I thought I'll just start off with the business of creative a little, just to whet your appetite. So I don't know how many of you saw this morning that YouTube took out a list of the top creators, and the biggest earner on YouTube is a child who is doing game reviews. And if I'm not mistaken, his revenue, if I read it correctly in the morning, was 417 crores. This is what he made, this child. And if Kevin is his name, I think he's 7 years old. There are, of course, many other YouTubers who are there. I don't know how many of you know about Substack, but Substack is fast becoming a personalized news service or a personalized thinking service where people get long form essays and articles which come from subject experts. The biggest Substack is a person who gets $500,000 a year by writing one article a week on a subject of his choice. Patreon, which as you all know is a platform for creators where people often have somebody coming in and paying regularly, has multiple creators who will have at least 1,000 loyal fans. And it was all based on this big article called 1,000 Loyal Fans, which you should look up, where the author said that if 1,000 loyal fans give you $5 a week, that's enough, right? I mean, just imagine that $5,000 a week is far more than enough for a creator to survive. In fact, actually very good for them to thrive. So what is happening? Why is the creator mindset so important today? I'm going to come to that a little later, but I thought first, let me just whet your appetite by saying this is the best time in the world to be a creator. And I can keep giving you examples of every possible field in the creative field. I'm not trying to give you regular ones about singers and performers and actors, because those you know. But these are just a couple of things that I wanted to start off and share with you. I'm going to flash back to 1974. A 4-year-old child in a small city like Lucknow was part of a 3-member play. And all the 3 children were in a municipal nursery and got on stage to perform a very, very small play. If I remember correctly, the script of the play was there was a Nawab, and for those of you who may not be familiar, maybe, a Nawab is almost like the royalty of an estate. And he's going for his morning walk and he sees 2 men who are fighting. And they come and say, will you come and help us? And the Nawab turns and says, why? And he says, we're having a big argument because look in the sky and, I'm saying that's the moon because it's still early morning. And he's saying that it's the sun. And both of us are having this big fight because so is it the moon or is it the sun? And the Nawab actually looks from the left and says, when I look from here, it looks like the moon. When I look from the right, it looks like the sun. So both of them say, oh, maybe it's just a matter of perspective. And they both go away happily. And the Nawab turns to the audience and says, these 2 fools don't even realize that it's kite flying season in Lucknow. And this kite on one side has a moon and the other side has a sun made. And therefore, every time it's going around in the wind, that's what's happening. Very small, simple, childish little story. But for 4-year-old children, extremely childish. The Nawab was being played by me. And the other 2 characters, and we had rehearsed for about a couple of weeks. And this was our annual stage performance in an auditorium called Ravindralaya, which had, I think, a seating of about 600 plus. So when we went to perform on stage, the other 2 boys froze. They forgot all their lines. And I was waiting in the wings for my chance to come on stage. And the minute I heard these 2 people and I realized they've forgotten their lines, I said, in case they walk off the stage, that means my role will never come. So I went running onto stage and I turned to one of them and said, आप लग रहा है कि आप बड़े गुस्सा हैं, you're very angry. And the other person, he says that, I think you're also very angry. And why are you angry? And I kept prompting them their lines. I gave them their lines. They suddenly obviously remembered because it was just the fear of being on stage. And we performed the entire play and we came off to thunderous applause. And the teacher turned to my parents that day and said, this boy saved my life. What I actually wanted to tell my teacher and those two students and everybody in the hall was that I think that stage saved my life because at 4 years, it gave me the opportunity to understand the power of communication, the power of discipline, and the power of bravery. See, these are many people don't associate these things with creativity. Everybody thinks creativity is about random thoughts. Creativity is about a spark of genius. But I really think that a lot of creativity has to do with bravery, communication, and discipline. Um, Discipline because I had learnt my lines and done it over and over and over in this very small example. Bravery because I took that chance. Um, and very often the difference between a great idea and an idea that sometimes just comes and goes is the amount of bravery that follows it. Do you have the strength of your conviction to say this or nothing? And communication, because I cannot tell you the number of times in business schools, in life, in pitches, in creative presentations, I find that people lack the power of good communication. And in today's day and age, uh, I think it is an essential skill and it is a creative skill because we can all talk, we can all string together some sentences, but can you tell great stories? Which is why I'm also very often called the quintessential storyteller. So I'm going to try telling you a whole bunch of stories during the course of this to give you a little bit of an insight into the creator mindset. Um, Having been on stage when I was 4 years old, I immediately realized that the stage was something I enjoyed, but I was too young to have formulated those three words in my head about bravery, communication, and discipline. But I kept at it. The next role that I got in a school play was in the Krishna Leela, which used to happen just like a Ram Leela. There was a Krishna Leela that used to happen in Lucknow. And I was playing the guard outside the room from which, young Krishna is taken across the river. And, by magic, both the guards go to sleep because the door of the cell opens, and it's a very old story. Everybody knows it. But I was playing the guard. Um, the next play that I did, I was playing, the Venerable Sri Ram in the Ram Leela. I learned later from my theater teacher that there are no small roles, only small actors. Do not forget that if you play the smallest role today, you could be playing the biggest role the next day. And you must have the capacity and the discipline to do both and not back away. Um, I can tell you multiple stories. I was in college and I was in Delhi University. I was quite a celebrated theater actor. I was working with Amir Raza Hussain, one of India's best theater teachers. And as luck would have it, one day I landed up at rehearsal with two other friends. We had all just discovered the joy of high spirits, if you know what I mean, in college. We landed up at a rehearsal in very high spirits. And we were immediately thrown out because it was against the theater rule. And the next day I got a call from most everyone else in the play being told, what did you do? Why did you do this? And I was like, listen, what's done is done. Now what can I do? And they were like, just turn up. And I turned up, and my theater director was known to be a person who had the kind of temper that he would, in a good mood, throw a shoe at you, and in a bad mood would throw a chair at you. So, obviously none of that would have survived in today's day and age. But, in the mid 80s, when I went, I was thrown out and I was told, just wait. And I went outside and I stood. And I can tell you, this was Delhi, toasty 38, 39 degrees, standing in the sun and standing for 4 hours and not being spoken to, nothing. And at the end of 4 hours, the rehearsal was over. And when my director walked out, he said, you're still here? Leave. I left. The next day again, I came back. I stood again outside for 4 hours. And this continued for a week. And finally, I, who was playing the lead in this play called 10 Little Indians, was demoted to play a role of a character called Narracott, who has one line in the play, who enters the stage, says a line, and leaves. Uh, and I did that. I did that for about 2 weeks. I came, and again, if those of you who might know Delhi, or if you don't, let me tell you that the distance between my hostel and the place where rehearsal used to happen was about 40 kilometers. Uh, and I used to take 2 buses to get to that place. So imagine going to one place and then going to another place. But uh, it was just about the fact that I showed up, I had the biggest role, I was then given the smallest role. And I keep trying to say that this line that my theater director later told me, which was, there are no small roles, only small actors. Do not ask what part you will play in the creative process. Someday you will be the small cog, someday you will be the big wheel, someday you'll be the engine, someday you'll just be the spark plug. Don't ask it. Don't try from the very beginning to know what exactly is going to be your position. I approach most ideas with no ego. It is so important to approach the process of creativity without putting up barriers, without putting up the ifs, the buts, the what's my role, what will I get. I generally feel that creativity very often, and creative muses give of themselves beautifully to people who surrender themselves to the creative world. And this surrender is in the form of going the extra mile, doing, as I said, so many of these things that I've been telling you about. And I think this goes equally into being a creator mindset. I'm very frequently asked, saying, you know, all the businesses that I have built, they were all creative businesses, 2 of which I have sold to WPP for decent sums of money. And people said, how did you start thinking of the commercial value? And I said, I never thought of the commercial value. I, I first thought about what value am I getting? What value am I creating? And the commercial value will always follow. So in creative ideas, very often surrender yourself to the process. The second really important thing is curiosity. How many of you have been seeing or hearing about these monoliths that are appearing across the world? Yeah, if any of you have been reading the news, there are these beautiful metallic objects that are appearing across the world, and people are talking about it. And yeah, so Abhay says he's heard about it. And they're appearing. The first one appeared, and the second one appeared. Now many others have appeared, and many people have started saying this is a marketing gimmick. Somebody started saying, oh, this is being done for a television series or for a film. Somebody is saying this is an art project. Somebody did think it's an alien. But just like these monoliths, very often creativity is about following through. We are inundated with these kind of thoughts and these kind of stories every day, but do you have the curiosity or the stamina in your curiosity to continue and follow the story through? This is the difference between a dabbler and somebody who likes to deep dive. It's really critical. There is a talk that I had given many years ago, which said, "Don't swim with the sharks, dive with the dolphins." And I only said that because dolphins have fun. They are highly intelligent. They are more intelligent than sharks, but they have fun while they do it, and they dive deep, etc. And that's what I keep saying, that creativity is a lot about doing that. Will you follow that one dot and connect it to the next dot? So keeping your curiosity alive is an essential part of the creator mindset. And you must do this. How curious are you? At Commune, every week we do a 1-hour session called What's New. And I must tell you, I feel extremely excited that more often than not, I am the person with the maximum number of what news even now, though I'm the oldest. I turned 50 about 4 months ago. But at my heart, when someone talks of Gen Z and whatever, I say, no, I am Gen Z. Because what is it? Is it, what defines Gen Z? What defines a millennial? I think millennials are defined by the fact that they were born into technology, and Gen Z, I think for them, technology was invisible. So millennials very often adopted a technology that came and adopted it early. The generation before that, was really taken aback by technology. And then, the Gen Z is completely ubiquitously, knows technology all around. Also for them, I think they're very authentic. But I try to be much the same. So I often, when someone tells me, says, "What are you?" So one of my friends the other day turned and said that you have the heart of a millennial and the mind of a Gen Z. I said, I'm very happy. You know, it's not about age at all. So I think a lot of it has to do with curiosity, and creativity has to be about curiosity. But again, I will make this distinction. Do not dabble, dive deep. Let me give you another small story. When I say dive deep, what do I mean? Um, there was on Twitter, many of us obviously are on Twitter and we get these little things that come. And one day I saw that Veer Sanghvi had done an article which was talking about the new India. And he quoted a line saying, "This is from the book Dreamers." I loved the line. I immediately went and Googled Dreamers. I found that Dreamers was written by Snigdha Poonam. Uh, I saw that and I tried to find her Twitter handle. I went to her Twitter handle and I wrote a note saying, "What a wonderful quote from your book. Would love to get it." She says, "It's already out. It's on Amazon." I went and bought a copy. I read the book. I finished reading the book and I found 3 stories in the book so wonderful that I wrote to her and I said, "These are possible films or television series." She said, "Roshan, you're a little late. Unfortunately, during the draft, when the book's first draft was going out, somebody has already bought the rights for these stories." So I realized, so what did I felt my instinct was correct. In finding that story, my instinct was correct. And I continued, my conversation with Snigdha Poonam. And lo and behold, a year later, we had to write a podcast around young India. And who did I reach out to but Snigdha? So following through on that, don't just, "Oh, great quote by Veer Sanghvi, I'll write it somewhere." No, follow through, follow through, follow through, follow through. And I keep saying this, that this is the differentiation between successful creators. Gulzar Sahab, Mr. Javed Akhtar, two of India's #1 lyricists, thinkers, intellectuals, poets, and people who I can count as genuinely people I mean, I get to spend some time within the year because I do a lot of creative work, and sometimes I'm working with them on songs or other ideas. Even they, if they write a liner, they still write in diaries, but they will write it and they will keep it. And they have, of course, the power of great, I mean, their mind is just wonderful if you sit with them. But they're able to quickly say, that particular line from there, and they bring it in. So I'm saying, learn this art of follow through. The other really important thing for creators is building virtuous networks. When I say virtuous networks, again, networks that do not show commercial value upfront. You do not go and immediately meet another creator and say, "Can you write a poem for me?" You appreciate their art. You meet a singer and you say, "This person touches my soul." You do not immediately try and start thinking of monetization of that song. Virtuous networks are created in similar ways. And I often tell people that the power of saying yes, I say yes to many more things than I should. And there are days when I'm like, "Oh God, I've got to do this, followed by this, followed by that." But I'm okay with it because in that yes, very often lies the creation of a virtuous network. Again, a simple thing. I'll tell you a small story. I had an intern who worked with us, and she was a very sharp girl. And she came one day and said, "Sir, I've got into IAM Shillong." And I was like, "Oh, that's wonderful." And she left. And after 3 months, she wrote to me, said, "We're doing a TEDx in IAM Shillong. Will you come and speak?" And I said, "Yes." And I put it in my diary and I forgot all about it. And I had the ticket, which was all blocked. And she told me many months in advance. And I was in Jaipur at an event, and occasionally I get this opportunity, and I'm a closet singer. I love singing, so I was with a band on stage singing till 2 in the morning. With every song, there would be one more cheers and one more drink, and we were like having a rollicking time. Um, but from here, uh, at about 2, I suddenly looked at my phone and I said, oh my God, I've got a 6 a.m. flight to Delhi. And then from Delhi, I have to fly to Guwahati. And then from Guwahati, I have to drive to Shillong. And, little did I know that Shillong is not next door to Guwahati. It requires 3 hours of travel time. And, there's a devil which sits on one shoulder, as they say, and an angel on the other. And the devil whispered saying, you can make an excuse. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I got up in the morning, splitting headache, got onto the first flight, grumbling, went onto the, so imagine Jaipur, Delhi, Delhi, Guwahati, Guwahati, Shillong. I get there by about lunchtime, from 6 to lunchtime. And I enter the hall, and in the hall, there is a performance of the Shillong choir. And watching the Shillong choir is such a beautiful experience. It's emotional. And I was like, wow, this is worth it. And the next person after that who was speaking on stage were two people. Television show. It's a beautiful show where they travel to small places and talk about the food. They're big foodies, lovely people, full of energy. Then there was a girl right after that, and she was talking about data and social data and what she's doing with social data. And she'd made this site called Social Cops. And then another scientist, etc. So everybody spoke. I even finished my bit. I had about 20 minutes to speak. And I did that. And in the evening over dinner, Rocky and Mayur told me that, this is what while they do this as a profession, they're actually trainers. They are trained trainers who take people through various kinds of workshops. And they said, we occasionally get to do that. We still love doing all that work. We all flew back. And when I landed in Delhi, I had a message from a friend of mine called Harsha Bhogle, who is a cricket commentator and a, lovely, lovely human being. And his message was, Roshan, I need help. And I'm like, okay. So I picked up the phone, I called him. He said, Roshan, there's a friend of mine who works in the Indian Foreign Service, and they have a little network of all foreign service people. And their cabinet secretary has said that she wants to do an offsite. And they wanted me to come and talk about sports, etc. I can't go. Can you go and do it? And I said, frankly, I don't know anything about sport. And what are their expectations? They're looking for an engaging workshop. I called that gentleman. I spoke to him. He gave me a gist of what was required. And I said, I may not be the right person to do this, but I met someone yesterday who might. And I called Rocky and Mayur. And the minute I called them, they were like, we'd love to do this. And they came and, 2 weeks later, they were doing a workshop. The workshop was brilliant. All the IFS people said, listen, guys, we are IFS. We've cleared the civil services. So we don't want Gyan. We wanted something that was engaging and great. And that's what Rocky and Mayur gave them. And this gentleman who had got all this put together, Harsha's friend, told me saying, Roshan, you guys delivered and whatever. And I'll remember this and I'll be back to you guys later. Now, our agency Encompass has done big events. We've done really big events, but we didn't work largely in the government sector because we didn't have an access and we didn't know what to do. And I mean, having done huge summits and opening ceremonies for IPL, etc., we were like, I wish we get to do something really big. And 3 or 4 months later, I get a call from the same gentleman saying, Roshan, I told you I won't forget, and I don't. I want you and your team to come in for a brief. And I said, what's the brief? He said, no, it's not a very big event. I said, okay. I said, what's the event? He said, it's the Indo-Africa Summit. Our Prime Minister wants to host every head of state from Africa in India, and it is going to be as big as the Commonwealth Games. And I said, that's a small event. And he said, nee, he was joking or whatever. Lo and behold, a year later, we were doing that ceremony. It's a ceremony you can see on television. It's everywhere. And it started because of this virtuous network. Keep building virtuous networks without asking what's in it for you. This is so important in a creator's mindset. It's so important. In all my journeys, from school to theater, there's obviously everything in between from radio to television. And I really don't know how many of these I would be able to cover, which is why I try to keep flitting from stories to give you all a little bit of a flavor of everything that one has done. But one of the things that I often like to talk about instead of success is failure. many creators will talk to you about their success and the awards they have won and what they have done. Believe you me, I have many stories of all of that. But in 2009, I started making a play that I had written, which was a big success in Delhi, into a film, which released in 2011. Now, 2 years, I invested myself into a process of making a film. And while I had studied filmmaking in 1993, uh, till over this course of 15 odd years, the process had changed a lot. Cinema had evolved. I was working with Red Chillies production. I was working with Shah Rukh Khan. Uh, it was crazy because he was working on a huge film called Ravan at that time, and I was making this really small film which was 6-7 crores. And sometimes, where do you find the intersection of 100 crore plus film and a 6 crore film when the same producer is making them? So sometimes, there would be very blurred lines, and there would be all kinds of issues about scripts and conclusions. And here is where I made one mistake, which I often acknowledge and I tell people, which is that I accepted that I want to make the film, so I will make it any which way. Um, this is where I forgot what I had told you earlier, to be brave. If at that moment I'd been brave and said, this is my script, this is the way I want to make it, this is the only way I'll make it, or whatever, maybe it would not have got made, but maybe it would not have got made differently. But then I put on my client servicing hat because I'd been servicing clients for so long at my other agencies. And I said, okay, let me just service my producers and get this film made. And I did it. And I still think, I mean, even today, people look at it and say, hey, it was nice, it worked, it was fine, but it wasn't as honest as I wanted the narrative to be honest. And so I came out on the other side, having invested 2 years into a process, which many people told me is like roulette. A film is like going into a casino and suddenly betting on a number and not knowing what's going to happen next. You can have the best intention, but you really don't know. Timing, cinemas, environment, actor. Ali Fazal was in my film, who today is one of the biggest stars, but that was his debut film, and obviously not a big star son, etc., etc. So, so we did what we could. And when the film came out and I came on the other side, I really stared at the fact that this was not the success that I wanted it to be. It was not what I had looked at. And here is where, and I, there's a lovely TED talk by the author of Eat, Love, Pray, or Eat, Pray, Love. I always get it wrong. Whether it's whatever the sequence is, but she talks about the fact that when you've had success, people very often will come and say, now what will you do? And I'd seen great success in TV, in radio, in theater, in events, all of that. And now you're here and, oh my God, now what will you do? Now this has not worked. And that is where you need to embrace the fact that it didn't go well and say, I'll do it again. It's not at the end of the road. Even today, when people say, I said, I've still got a couple of films inside me. I may not make one for a while. I will. But I want to be absolutely certain. I want my narrative to be so well drawn, etc. But what happened on the other side of that was that when you invest so much into a creative process, there is a vacuum. Giving off your creativity is like emptying a bottle. If you don't refill it, you keep giving the same air out, and that's when you become a gas bag, right? So be very careful. Do not let your creativity exhaust itself, which is where you've got to keep feeding and fertilizing the field. And this is so important. Never let your creative inspiration disappear. I was bereft of inspiration. I promise you, for a year, I was paralyzed. I didn't know what to do. I would sit at home. I would not write, not do anything. And my friends started coming around and saying, don't worry. Gaurav Kapoor, Vikram Sathe, Mini Mathur, my wife Shaheen, Maria Goretti, Ankur Tiwari, so many of my friends, they would all keep coming around and saying, it's all right. And they would all talk of their failures and what went wrong in their lives. And I would hear that and feel, okay, it's all right. It's okay. You don't have to be 100% successful in everything you do. You can be 30% successful in one project, 50 in the other, 90 in the next, 150 in the next. So I became comfortable with the idea of failure, one. And then my friends started taking me and getting me out of this shell and making me do things. And this is the time when I came across a beautiful, beautiful book. Uh, and it's called The Artist's Way. The Artist's Way is a book that I highly recommend. In fact, I think the lady who wrote it became so successful that she wrote multiple versions of the same book. But they are all wonderful. So while they have the same spine, she keeps writing about different things, and it's really lovely. And there were two habits that she asked people to have. One habit was to write 3 pages by hand every morning. And I was like, write as in write something creative, write something which is really inspiring. She said, no. If you want to get up and say, I woke up at 6:30, write. No problem. But write 3 pages by hand. And, when you have become so accustomed to writing for a desired output, you're like, why should I just write? What's the output? And it was like the book said, just write. And the second thing the book said was, go on a creative date. I said, go on a creative date? What does it mean? So it says, go and date an art form you've never dated before. Do something you've never done before. So I'm not very fond of dancing. I can watch. I don't know classical dance. I don't know a lot of classical literature apart from what I'd studied in the early days. And I would go to Prithvi and watch an abstract play. And then I would go to G5A and watch another performance. And I would go and listen to a political discourse on something. And it's not my cup of tea. But what it did was it again started fertilizing the field. And the writing 3 pages every day started bringing back the discipline. So again, it's the discipline. And I'm telling you, creativity requires discipline. Many people feel, oh my God, again, I'm going back to the same thing, random atom. No, I'm telling you, there is a discipline to it. And what that did was it first got my mind and my hand and my motor neurons and everything to start functioning in that manner. And my father used to tell me in winters in Lucknow when he would be starting our Bajaj Chetak scooter, and suddenly after 3 kicks, it would make this big padak sound. And I would turn to him and say, what's that sound? He said, nahi, spark plug na, wo thoda usme carbon hai. So I said, acha. So he used a line, I still use the line. It says, carburetor se pehle kachra nikalta hai. The first thing that comes out is not necessarily great. And therefore, this 3 pages a day habit, the first 100 times that I wrote, I must have written rubbish. I swear there were days that I wrote saying the window is looking like this and the door. I mean, I was writing stuff like that. But by the 3rd month, words were flowing straight from my mind. My imagination had opened up. I was constantly being able to do something really unique. I had creative ideas. I was being able to really do things in a unique manner. And this is a habit that and I'll be honest, I did it for about 6 months then, and it galvanized me and it got me out. And the next really shocking thing that I did was date a creative idea. I hadn't done stage for I don't know how many years. I had directed, I had written, I hadn't acted. And there was this great thing called Aladdin, which was cast in Bombay. And they were like, will you act in it? And I said, okay, I'll come for an audition. And they said, you're such a sweet, cherubic looking person. We'd cast you as Santa Claus. So we'll cast you as the Sheikh, as in the Sultan, Jasmine's father. And I said, nahi yaar. And they were like, Arey, it's such a nice role. It doesn't require too much time. I said, but tell me what are the other roles? So that obviously I can't play Aladdin because I'm not the age. And they were like, there's no other big role except for Jafar, the villain. And I was like, this I want to try. And they were like, we can't imagine you as Jafar. Please, if you later get some time, please go and Google Roshan as Jafar and see what the look and everything. We worked on the look. I used to spend 2 hours on my makeup every day, wearing lenses, putting out my eyebrows, putting false eyebrows, wearing this helmet, putting on this beard, practicing dance, which I hated doing, singing a song, which I loved doing. But I loved it. I spent 3 months and I got back to the same discipline. I got back to the same, this whole challenge of doing something new. Um, and I promise you, it was delightful to do it because it was scary, it was fun. I once again felt the butterflies, which you need to feel as a creator. And I think it's equally important. So I'm saying, when you empty the bottle of all your creativity, keep refilling. And that refilling is absolutely critical. Um, During the pandemic, we have the book is called The Artist's Way. Maybe Subkirti can write it in the chat for you all later. So uh, the this entire process, and in all this process, Commune was born, and Commune is my heart and soul. There's so much that I do in Commune today, which is something that I really, really enjoy. And what do we do at Commune? We connect creators, people to possibilities. That's what my bio also says. I connect people to possibilities, and I connect artists to collaborators, and I connect collaborators and artists to ways of commerce, and I connect both of them to audiences or consumers, because I feel that nobody does this right. So in a strange way, we're trying to be a democratic platform for creativity. And I know this is going to grow. And some people occasionally come and say, so what's the big idea? Is this going to be a tech startup and whatever? I said, no, it's right now, it's a creative idea. It's like an amoeba. It is evolving. It will find its own shape. You know, currently it is going through the process of meiosis, mitosis, or whatever, and it's figuring out what it's going to become. I don't know what it will become, but I am happy to continue to give it that warm environment where it can grow. And over 5 years, it has grown. The first time we did a spoken word event, we had 15 people in a sweaty yoga studio in Warsaw in Bombay. When we do Spoken Fest today, we have 15,000 people across 2 days who pay 2,000 rupees each. We're planning to take Spoken International. We're planning to, we started podcasting this year. We now produce 13 podcasts. 4 of them are in the top 100 in India. Is it by design? No. A lot of creativity is not by design. But in a highly artificial intelligent machine learning world, very soon the only thing that will be valued will be the anomaly, will be the fuzzy logic, will be the person who can put 1 plus 1 and make it 11 and not 2 and not 3. And that's the joy of creativity. And that is what we can continue to do. Just remember that this is the best time in the world for creators. And therefore, I'm bringing the story full circle. Because when I started and I gave you those numbers, I said, what is happening? What's happening is the gig economy is giving way to the passion economy. The passion economy today requires democratization, and that's what's happening. Today, TikTok has created a whole set of creators, YouTube, whole set of creators, Substack, whole set of writers, multiple such formats, Patreon, etc., as I was saying before. And these technologies, creative software as a service, startups will be a great thing to do in the future. The pandemic has told us that we can do creativity asynchronous. It can be asynchronous, right? Everybody thought idea के लिए 10 लोगों को एक कमरे में बैठना पड़ता है. जरूरी नहीं है. Everybody sits wherever. People are all over the world. People are all over the globe. I'm in Dubai right now. You all are in different cities. And people who will work on asynchronous tools for creativity, it's going to be a big thing in the future. If you can, please try to follow and read a lot of what is written by a fund called A16Z. A16Z, which is Andreessen Horowitz, is a brilliant fund in the US, but they are very big on passion economy, and I follow them like now with like a laser, because I love what they do. And they are all saying that the passion economy's time has come. And why it has come is because today the tools are there for you to build an audience. The tools are there for you to monetize that audience. The tools are there for you to personalize your creation. So in the gig economy, you wanted to get from point A to point B, and therefore Uber was born. You wanted to rent a place and you didn't care whether it was a hotel or a home, and Airbnb was born. But in the passion economy, you'll be wanting things that are far more personalized and attentive to you. And that is going to grow leaps and bounds, leaps and bounds. So there is so much that's going to happen. If you don't believe me, go to two sites. Go to a site called Fiverr, Fiverr, if I'm not mistaken, or Freelancer, and look at the new professions that are listed there. And at least 50 of the professions listed are purely creative professions that didn't exist a year ago. Was there something called a podcaster? Was there something that required you to create that entire space? No, didn't exist. It's in the US, it was, in India, it didn't exist, and whatever. And so I'm telling you, again, I read and I listen voraciously to multiple things. Are you asking for the website for Fiverr? It's just Fiverr, yeah, it's just there. So I think many of your friends are putting up stuff there. So what's happening is that the tools, etc., are being built as we speak, and I do not think, if you seek, you will find the difference between this generation and my generation. And this is the only place where I'll tell you a difference, and it's because it's a provocation. Because everything that we wanted was so difficult to acquire, we valued it a lot more. And so the only thing that I'll tell you is that we used to get if there was a little light shining through the door, we would burst the door open because we were so desperate for that opportunity. You are blessed to have every tool available to you, but you must follow through, right? Going back to the same thing, bravery, communication, discipline. Make sure that you have these three by the oodles, and don't be scared of failure. It will happen. And which is why I keep telling you that these things will happen. The two or three really wonderful things that are currently happening, and in the last 9 months of the pandemic, when the first day when the pandemic happened, my commune team, which was so used to working together, creative people, writers, festival designers, etc., salespeople and stuff, they were like, what are we going to do? And we put one Excel sheet where everybody used to come and check in and check out. Without filling that sheet, the morning meeting doesn't happen. But I can't tell you, the fact that people have a place to go and a place where they are accountable. Accountability very often in creativity is something which people leave out. People say, I didn't feel like writing, but there were 10 other people waiting. So I'm saying it's important. And that accountability has made us come up with 16 new formats during the last 9 months. Many of them failed, some succeeded. We did a play on Zoom. We produced podcasts. We did online festivals. We did e-learning workshops. We made money online during the lockdown. And I told people saying, yes, creativity can pay as long as you ask for it. I often tell people that, decide what you're getting. If you're getting something, it's great. If if you feel, oh, there's value because I'll get exposure, etc., it's fine. But creativity has a value. At Commune, we don't do things for free. We're very often saying no, because we want people to get into the habit of paying for creativity. With all the things that we experimented, I was looking today at some numbers for Commune for the year, and I think we've done better than what we would have expected. And frankly, even better than last year during the lockdown. So creativity and even performance art, etc., can thrive during the pandemic. You just need to think about it from that lens. The last thing that I want to tell you is this. Creativity is an ocean. The world is looking for this, and you can keep throwing pebbles of possibility into oceans of opportunities. Keep throwing pebbles of possibilities. Some will sink without a trace. Do not be scared of the effort or whatever you did. Some will leave ripples, and that's where you need to pick up all the pebbles and maybe throw them together so you can make a big wave, a big splash. But that is the joy of creativity. That is the entire joy and the process of creativity. You need, as individual creators, if you can follow some of these things that I believe are the creators' way, it's great. As companies or organizations, if you can think of new startups, new ideas, this is the time. But remember that vision without execution is hallucination, right? This is said by Michael Acton Smith, who is the head of Calm, the app, which has gone into $1 billion plus valuation. It's doing brilliantly. But But vision without execution is hallucination. Do not have ideas that are whimsical and just a thought. It's fine. In the initial process, as I said, put out as many seeds as you want, but then follow through. And if you follow through with your creativity, with your belief, the end will be a better world, a more creative world, because I know that science can save humanity, but art will save your soul always. Thank you.
Roshan, that was unbelievable. I'm so spellbound by these gems of information that you gave. Really gems on creativity, how to deal with it, how to develop a habit to inculcate that in your daily life. This has been phenomenal, and thank you so much for sharing this with us. As I said, I'm
Thank you.
spellbound by your storytelling abilities to sort of create those macro values of creativity, and then to tie them with your personal stories. I think that really made the session very, very interesting. So Manish, would you like to have some thoughts on that?
Roshan, I must tell you that I am at loss of words. So brilliantly delivered stuff. And I am not from the creative world. So, it was really, really brilliant. You talked about the storytelling. So I was making my notes and talked about the storytelling, and you were telling stories. So you were the live examples of what you are actually communicating people to do. The emphasis upon the communication skills, ability to structure thoughts, discipline, right? Ability to communicate and influence people with the story capabilities, because otherwise information is available everywhere, but until people relate it in the form of the story, it's very difficult to imbibe and actually practice in the real life. So thank you very much for these brilliant pieces of, the wisdom, the way you put together and the way you communicated with help of your real life experiences. Simple, small experiences which we ignore, you could actually put them together to communicate very meaningful stuff to all of us. So a couple of points which you talked about is the approach ideas without barrier, focus on value creation, and the commercial aspect of that will reflect back over a period of time. The point you talked about, follow through. I think that was absolutely brilliant. We take an idea, we listen to something, clap our hands and walk out. Forget it. Until we make the notes and follow through. You gave very interesting example on the book Dreamer, the way you basically followed that part up. And I have noted this down, and I will buy the book and I will follow through. I promise. That's something which I learned. The idea of fertilizing the seeds, I think fertilizing the fields was absolutely brilliant, the way you put it together. Be comfortable with the failure, gig economy, passion economy. I mean, you have given us in a 45 minutes talk something which is absolutely brilliant. And I think it's just 45 minutes, but the experience of 25, 30, 40 years of yours. And the way you packed it, the way you communicated it with help of a story is really brilliant. I have no words. Thank you very, very much. On behalf of everyone who is present here, I would like to say thank you very much. Thanks, Roshan. Sincerely appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I must tell you that Subkirti was so warm in his in reaching out to me, and I get very beholden. So like before the day of a talk, I keep walking up and down. My family is like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "No, I get into this zone where I try to do things, and it's so good to see so many people here who I know. And Maita, it's so good to see you here. And Nitin, of course, whatever questions you have, I'm very happy to answer whatever questions you guys have.
I think Abhishek or Abhay Maheshwari has an interesting question which we can take.
Sure.
So he says that analytics and data is used by corporates to know what and where to create. But do you think in time this will bias or influence how creator talent is scouted? Or will the traditional conventional approaches continue where raw talent is shaped and groomed?
So, really good question, Abhay, because most A&R, which is, people who look out for artists and repertoires in various companies, they earlier used to go scouting from nightclubs, and I've heard this question very often in a lot of creative seminars where people turn and say, you know, the days of going and listening to the Beatles at a place and then saying these are going to be the next big thing is very different from then suddenly analyzing, oh, people have started listening to so and so more on Spotify and maybe we need to invest in them. Both approaches will exist. I don't think that it's a choice of one over the other. It's what Steve Jobs used to say, that, you know, that you can't, if you build things that people want, how will you give them something that they just don't even know exists? So it will always, there will always be need for the outliers. There's always be the person who backs an idea whose time has come. And again, Jack Ma has said this, that he says, you know, stop teaching what you used to teach in school, stop teaching math, stop teaching those things, because that will be done by a computer. While I still have great faith in pure science, I still believe that it's very important. There are these human skills, these creative skills, which I still think people need to map and give enough value to, because that's their intuition, empathy. These are such basic things that you require in the process of creativity, that you find them over a period of time. So I really feel that both will exist. That's the short answer to what you said. And I do believe that the outlier will always be discovered. I had a huge debate, I remember 2 years ago, in a coalition where me and the director of Ship of Theseus almost came to blows on stage, because he said that there will come a time that if you fed a computer enough things, if everything is an input and an output basis data, if you can if you know all the possible inputs or whatever, then you can predict the output. And I said, well, English, Chaucer wrote, Shakespeare wrote, every wrote, input was the same, but output was different. And we got into this whole discussion. He was like, no, but you know, there's still this law. And I was like, no, even today, the number of computations that a human brain does is still, singularity is still 10 years away, as they say. But till that time, I'm going to remain a huge believer in human creativity and the anomaly. The anomaly is always what will set you apart.
Awesome. So Roshan, I had a question. You know, anybody would like to have a question right now?
Nitin has a question.
Nitin has a question.
Yes. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. So Roshan sir, there are two small questions. One is in regards to multitasking. So personally, I am into performing in live shows as an anchor, and I have been doing stand-up comedy. I am a world record holder in magic, and also moved into acting. And I just gave an audition 4 days ago and cracked that also. And I would like to venture into YouTube, which I am just procrastinating from last 2 months. Now, these are 5 different professions, kind of. How do I balance or multitask in this whole jungle?
So see, I there was a time when I used to get up in the morning, go to a radio station, do a show, go shoot something, do a voiceover, come back. I've been through that same rigmarole, because at that point in time, I did not know which of the dice is going to roll a 6. So I would keep rolling the dice, but there is a finite amount of time and energy that you have. So you must understand, you must constantly keep taking feedback and decide which of these feeds which part of you. For example, maybe the anchoring will pay you a lot more, but will not satisfy your soul because it's done and over. You are a piece of a pie. But maybe again in the acting, while it might get you a lot, most actors are I know so many big actors who are upset with the fact that they can only do one thing because they've got slotted. So they don't feel themselves so creative. So you've got to decide what's going to feed your stomach and what's going to feed your soul. Also, the other big thing is, and I'll tell you this, when I was in college, there was rarely an extracurricular that I couldn't do. I would sing, I would act, I would do, debate, jam, quiz, all of that. But I also looked and said, I was very conscious of what is my skill level. In the same batch of college, the person who used to win in every singing competition was KK, who sang Tadap Tadap Ke and every other big song that you know. And I said, he's 10 times better. So I'm a hobbyist singer. I sing for my friends. Right. And I changed it. And I was just conscious. Very often, we are so hell-bent on being something that we do not listen to criticism. Every time we do our spoken fest, I get thousands of people who say, what a beautiful festival. I want to listen to the 20 who say, this could have been better, because don't drown out the voices that often are the criticism, because it's very easy to get seduced by success. Always have a set of people who are your naysayers, who are not your believers, who are willing to pull you down, willing to just give you that little reality check, and then decide how much time you want to invest.
Okay. And one small thing is, I think profession or life in general is a game of snake and ladder, where if someone is having a mentor, like I have a background of a CACS CFA, and I've dropped it in the middle just before the finals. But I was always having a mentor in that profession. But in the entertainment genre or this industry, it's very tough to say kind of find a mentor or approach that person, so that I sincerely want to become someone and would love to give back to society through my humor, create that value. But I don't have anyone to connect, and this whole idea of mentorship.
I'll tell you what. No, so see, mentorship. What happens is that just like Eklavya had to give. I mean, I know it's not the right example, but I mean, just the fact was that he did not have a physical mentor, but he was still focused on what his goal was, right? And I'll tell you one thing. In today's day and age, getting feedback is very easy. Mentorship requires obviously someone to keep checking in with you. And again, go to this site called Side Hustle, right? On Substack, there is Side Hustle, which is started by Lee Jin, Lijin. Again, she's from Andreessen Horowitz. I completely follow them, and they are quite crazy. What she says there is so focused, because her entire point becomes about the fact that she created the site saying you will not be able to say what you just said. She has listed 5 coaching sites, mentorship sites, everything. And believe you me, this is what the gig economy has given way to. The passion economy will create, for every one of your needs, there will be a software as a service. So you will get that mentorship. And I'm telling you right now, there are multiple platforms that have been created. If I'm not mistaken, just day before, I came across a site which somebody was, I'll try to remember, and I'll quickly, just give me a second, I'll try and remember and tell you, because there are lots of mentor sites that are now coming up, and you'll be able to access a whole bunch of mentors. Also, Commune will be starting a mentorship program in Jan, so I'll tell you that.
Thank you.
Anyone else would have a question? I think we are running out of time now.
If I may just say one thing, it's not a question actually.
Sure, absolutely.
Roshan had mentioned certain things in his talk. He said, be brave, communicate, have a vision and execute it, and be accountable. These were 5 points that he mentioned. And I would like to tell you that last year, I didn't know what I was going to do. But with the help of Commune, they made sure that I could articulate a vision that I had in my head. There was someone who always kept checking. What's happening? You said you were going to do this. Are you going to do this? And they made me be accountable not only to myself, but to them. And it helped me to be what I am today with help. So everything that Roshan said, do, it's because he is also helping other people to do. And I would like to say thank you, because he's somebody who walks the talk.
Thank you, Maita. Thank you so much.
Great. Roshan, I have a question. And just to touch upon the last point that you had made regarding consistency. So I think in the creative process, coming up with newer ideas, coming up with daily inspirations or something like that, consistency is really important. To be a creator right now, we can see a lot of YouTubers who are consistent in their content when they put out. So what do you think? Like, what is the idea, or how can you develop that consistency in your putting out the content? Because we definitely run out of ideas. There are some writer blocks that are happening. We are not in that zone, as you said. So how to improve upon that?
So Subkirti, two parts. And the reason why is consistency important is because, again, in the passion economy, you need to build an audience. The audience wants to be built because of, your consistency, and they do not expect brilliance every time. After a little while, stickiness happens, loyalty happens. And that loyalty, Prajakta, who's known as Mostly Sane on YouTube, is a girl that I worked with, and I value my, knowing her a lot. She and her entire team from One Digital will tell you that, boss, if she doesn't post on Tuesday what she said she's going to post, there are 1,000 people who write to her saying, what do you think you are? We are waiting. Because she has built that loyalty. So one part of creative consistency goes towards building a loyal audience, which earlier mass media used to do for you. Television used to turn and say, Aaj raat 9 baje, KBC. Now on YouTube, you can't say Aaj raat 9 baje. You will announce it on all your social platforms and people will tune in. So you build loyalty by consistency. How to get consistent output? Number one, do not again be scared of the quality of output, because there will be days I write brilliantly and there are days that I write rubbish. But I'm okay, because what I write brilliantly, I share with a larger audience. What I write as rubbish, I share with my critics and my other friends or whatever as a small group. There are enough sites and prompts on Reddit which are available. And I recently did an interesting course. And again, sorry, one point which I forgot to mention earlier in my talk was the fact of saying, always be learning. So I do at least 5 courses a year online, and I do them. I find vague courses. 2-3 of them I give up because they're too tough. I tried to do a course in stockbroking. It was too intelligent for me. I was like, no, this is not me. I tried to do something else. It's okay. It's fine. But many of these courses sometimes throw gold. So Amit Verma has a course. He's such a great podcaster. And he has an art of clear writing course. And I'm telling you one thing, while it is not, and I'm telling you, initially I thought, oh, but I know most of this. But the beauty is his course, which runs over 4 weeks, and it's not a cheap course, it costs 10,000 rupees. But what it does is that the number of other people in the class, then they form a writing cohort. And now with that writing cohort, every week we get 5 prompts. And I've not written for 2 weeks, but I wrote something 2 weeks back and I posted it today, and people really liked it and whatever. But it was just that it's building a consistency. So again, I said that become part of a virtuous network that can push you. And they are available for free. So if you go on to Reddit and become part of 2-3 of these writing groups, or you go and you'll find it. But then have the discipline to check in. Have the discipline, because nobody there is going to force you. They won't say, Subkirti, why didn't you write today? But you will find that discipline yourself.
Very well put. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I have a question.
Sure.
Hey, Nitesh.
Yeah, hi, Roshan, and thank you for a beautiful talk. In your talk, I heard many things, but one of the things that I struggle with is the idea of saying no, especially when you were talking about your filmmaking experience. And when people start to recognize you, there are a lot more people who want to work with you, who want to be associated with you. So how do you approach this idea of saying no? Yeah, I think that's the main theme of the question. The other things.
So I must tell you, I am a victim of not saying no, but I also gain a lot on the other side. So I'm ambivalent about, sometimes there are days when I get frustrated with the idea and say, I will never say yes again. And then there are days that I don't, but I've now worked out a method. I always tell people saying, tell me 3 things before you approach me. What do you want out of this? How much time will it take? What do you think is my benefit? Now, what happens is that it forces the other person to think. Otherwise, they're like, sir, मैं कुछ करना चाहता हूं, मैंने कुछ सोचा है, ठीक है. What do you want out of it? Right? What is the time required? What do you think is my benefit? Why should I do it? And it's a very difficult question that most of us in India don't ask, right? But I ask it now, and I ask them because, and sometimes it's already run through my head, but when I do it, it just gives me a sense of what's required, what's the time, and yes, tell me, why do you think I should do it for you? If you can convince me, and I give an example. 4 months ago, I got this lovely email in my inbox, and I get tons of emails which are just vague highs, hellos, and I keep telling people, saying, stop this LinkedIn hi, hellos, don't make it Facebook. Send me something which is specific. So I got a mail which said, you've got a happy mail. And that intrigued me. And when I read the mail was genuinely well crafted, very clear on what it wanted, what they did. And, I went ahead and I gave an interview to this really small magazine, but everything was very clear. And force people to tell you these things. Also, I work with a lovely startup group called GSF, Global Super Angels Forum, where I'm one of the small investors. But Rajesh Sawhney has actually told me, he says, Roshan, we get 500 applications every month. I asked them 3 questions. What's the problem you're trying to solve? How big is the problem you're trying to solve? Why are you the right person to solve it? So I've tried to find the creative expression of the same, right? So because I know that they're approaching me, so I try to modify it into this thing. And I really feel that creators need to be a little more honed and focused in what they want, why they want it, what's the time required. And you will either get a yes or a no. Nitin, you can write it down.
Thank you so much. That was very helpful.
Anytime.
Great. So I think we are 10 minutes over time now. I'm sure, Roshan, people wouldn't mind, listening to you for another 2 hours, but we tend to be mindful of people's time on a weekend. So Roshan, thank you so much for this session. I really enjoyed, from the very first conversation that we had. I told you I'm a big fan of your show, The Family Fortunes, that was aired, way back when I was a kid. And from that time to seeing you find Commune, the various ventures that you have done, it's just unbelievable to have you on the platform, sharing these bits of information with us. Thank you so much, guys, for turning up on a Saturday evening. My name is Shubkirti. I am the Assistant Director of Smith School of Business, University of Maryland. And, I'll be in touch with you for more such masterclasses. I hope to bring Roshan back to the platform, one day again. Now we are in that virtuous network space that you were talking about. So thank you again, Roshan. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. And
Thank
you,
you,
Manish. Thank you for hosting me, and thank you everyone who joined in. I do hope we can continue to add values. And remember one thing, simple thing is that a lot of what you learned, share it with others, because that's the only way to pay it forward. So just do that, because, knowledge shared actually gets both sides of the people to earn a little bit more. So just go that and that will really, really help. Thank you, guys. Thank you once again.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.